Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of my live tea tasting. I've got an exciting, well, it's all overall exciting because this is my 150th stream and I have been waiting to do this tea for a very long time, looking for a really nice occasion. So tonight's tea is going to be very special. It's going to be more demonstrative than anything else that I've done in quite some time. But tonight's blend is going to be matcha. And I know that it's kind of like the mystery of teas, so I'm going to explain some of that tonight, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it. It's going to get a little bit more in depth than I'm used to, but hey, that's what we're here for. It's all about the education. So without further ado, I'm going to just jump right in because this is going to be a more demonstrative stream. I have not prepared my tea early, mainly because there's a certain technique to making matcha correctly. Hey, Pops, I see Ma, and I saw Rachel jump in and pop right back out. I don't know if you're still in here, but welcome so much. I'm super excited to be doing this one. I've waited quite some time. So, you know what? I don't even know why I started my water so soon, because I want to go over all of the different pieces of equipment that you lose. It's literally equipment to prepare matcha. So, you'll see down here, we have this whole setup. There we go. I'm even bringing out my bamboo tray for the first time, because making matcha can get really messy sometimes. But it's all about the technique. It's all about doing things correctly rather than neatly. So you'll see here we have about a few pieces. We have the actual matcha in the bowl. Look at how bright green this is. This is actually coming from the tea shelf, which is in India. And normally matcha is only made in Japan. So this is a bit of a rarity right off the bat. But I have pre-tasted this blend before, and it is excellent. I'll go over the quality as the thread progresses, but it's probably actually a good thing that I started the waters a little bit early, because matcha tends to be a little bit sensitive to water temperature, so I don't want to make it too hot. Hey Pops, there you go. It's hard for me to see because right now my phone is like pointing down. But I'm glad you could make it. So, we have, first things first, the actual matcha. As you'll see, it is powdered. I'll talk more about the process later. But I also have making another debut. This is my favorite matcha bowl. I very rarely use it, but it's a one-of-a-kind piece. It was called sandstone or something. It was molded and created with the grains. You can see it very much looks like something that you'd find on the beach. So it's very, very textured. Hey, Teresa, welcome. It's very, very textured, very rough. Traditionally, you're not going to find something like this, but this was a very special piece. I wanted to bring it out, make the debut tonight. Normally, you'll just have a regular bowl. Now, we also have the bamboo scoop, which is used to scoop out the tea, mix it in. Sometimes I don't have the what is it called? Like the grate. Normally, people, if they're particular about the texture, they'll put a what is it, like a sieve kind of thing, a very fine sieve. They'll scoop it into the sieve and run it through, so you'll use the bamboo scoop for that as well, but we won't be doing that. And I'll go into why later on in just a moment. But this is, in order to make very good matcha, you'll need a very good whisk. They do last a while, but they get worn out pretty quickly. So now that you've seen all the pieces, I'm going to go over how the matcha is actually made, because there's a very specific process to making it. Traditionally, you'll be wanting to get the tea that it's made from is Girakuro, which is grown in Japan, and okay. So here's how it's processed. There's so much information going through my head right now. It's kind of all jumbling up. But in order to make tea, the first step is withering. So you'll pluck the tea from the leaf. From the bush. You'll bring it to the factory, and then you'll lay it out over either a mat or a slate or a stone, something like that, and leave it out to dry. Now, the thing about Girokuro is the conditions under how it's grown, and it's very important to the quality of the tea, how from its conception, how it comes off the plant to begin with. So what they do is they grow it in a very shaded area. Either they have a heavily forested area, or they put canopies where such little sunlight comes through that the plant has to create more chlorophyll. And the more chlorophyll it produces, in order to collect the sunlight, the very little sunlight that's there, it's going to enhance the taste. So what they do is they grow it in the shade and make it work towards towards getting a more fulfilling flavor. Once you get that done, you pluck it, and then you begin to wither it. Now, the withering process can take a little bit of time, normally a couple of hours, but the trick is after it's withered to the point of oxidation, you'll want to oxidize the tea very little. So I believe it's only, for white tea there's no oxidation. For green tea, it's, I believe, 30% at the most. You don't want to get too oxidized, because then you'll go into the oolong and black tea areas. But they'll fire it up a little bit, and they'll keep it nice and dry so that they can powder it. They'll grind it usually with a stone and collect the powder. It's usually very fine, what you'll see here. It just sticks to your finger, and it feels really silky. Now, there's usually 5 grades of quality to matcha, and you can see how full this grade is. So this is not culinary. Culinary grade matcha is usually used in cooking. So you'll have a greenish, brownish tint to it. It's not going to be very appealing to the eyes, but the 4 other ones get more and more green as it goes along. You'll see this is going to be about midway green. It's bright. It's very. It has a lot of chlorophyll. This is super green. So I would say this is maybe a 3rd or 4th tier quality. The highest quality is super duper expensive, and it's noticeably greener. Like, you'll see a huge dark pure green to it. This one is a little bit brighter, but this is still pretty high grade. Now, the process of making the matcha is simple and actually kind of fun. So you're going to start off scooping up 2 scoops of the matcha tea. Leave it in there. Now there's usually 2 ways to make it. I'm going to go the more traditional way. So I'll show you guys the way that the whisk is created. So you'll see there's 2 layers, the outer layer and the inner layer. The inner layer is woven tight so that you have a twist in the middle. But if you'll look closely at the end of each bristle, there is a twirl at the end. I'm showing 2 cameras, so I'm like going off to the side. So you'll see what you want is getting the matcha to aerate through that, but also be pushed around by this. Now, as time passes, it's going to unfurl. It's going to open up, and that's not going to reduce the quality of the matcha at all. But after a while, it'll eventually just wear out, and so you'll want to buy a new one. This one is practically brand new. I don't even know if I've used it ever before. By the looks of it, I probably haven't, because I don't even see the green stains that you'll normally see through the matcha. So this is a brand new whisk. I'm going to get the best quality whisking from it. So now that you have the matcha in the pot, in the bowl, is going to be a slight technique. What you do is you fill it up just a little bit. You don't want to put too much into it, because it's gonna ruin the traditional way of processing. As a matter of fact, I think I accidentally used a little bit too much, because you'll want to have like a pasty kind of texture to it. So I might have put in just a little bit too much, but this is fine for our purposes. So now that you have that one little piece in there, you're going to want to whisk it. Now the trick is doing it in an M kind of fashion. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, then back 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're going to want to do it back and forth until it gets frothy. Now the trick is all in the wrist. You're going to want to keep this kind of a motion back and forth. And as you do it, it's going to take about 2 minutes to do it correctly, but you can see there's already a frothy, there's a lot of bubbles coming at the top. You're going to want to make that as bubbly as possible. So this is why I have the tray out, just in case it's going to spill. Now there's not a whole lot of chance of that happening because I'm doing this the more traditional way, where I just barely fill it, and then I barely fill it, and then I just whisk it. Now you can see there's even more bubbles. Like, because I stop, it's not becoming as frothy as it usually does. But demonstration purposes, we're going to want to keep it as smooth as possible. So the more you whisk it, the smoother it'll be. I'm not sure if anybody, nobody's chatting. So feel free to ask questions as I go, because this is part of the demonstration, and you're going to want to get as much information out as possible. But this is one of my favorite teas to make because it's so interactive. This isn't the kind that you just sit there and wait until it's finished steeping. And another technique, another key part of the technique, is that you want to scoop as you go. So you're digging to the bottom of the bowl as you go. That way, none of the powder sticks to the bottom and then gets a little bit talk about the traditions of matcha. Okay, yeah. So matcha is a very popular tea in Japan, and it's basically served to people as an honor. So there is actually an entire ceremony that goes with the matcha tea. Now, if you've ever seen the movie Karate Kid 2, that is actually one of the most accurate renditions of the tea ceremony. And people laugh at that, but it's true. Like that's the way it is. Well, you have this ceremony where she does I forget which way. It's either clockwise or counterclockwise, and then she presents the tea, and Daniel bows, accepts the tea, and drinks. And I'm not getting much froth in here because I keep stopping. But it's been over 2 minutes. So with that, now that you have a froth built up, traditionally you'll add more water to it. And you'll see there's a deep green to it. And that looks absolutely delicious. I mean, as far as matcha goes, because I mean, you're not going to walk through Central Park, see water like this, and want to drink it. But knowing the source, you see it's a nice deep green. It's very murky. That's because of the actual tea leaf itself. Matcha is also known as the super tea because you're not just drinking what rinses off the tea in the hot water, you're drinking the actual leaf. So all the antioxidants, all of the health benefits are going to be multiplied by that very much. So you're like, this tea is also very, very potent. Let me look at you guys again, just for this portion. So as I was saying, it's very, very potent. You're going to get a lot of the health benefits. You're going to get a lot of the everything is just going to be magnified. It's also because of its potency, you want to not drink too much, otherwise it'll get to you. I've learned this the hard way. So I always suggest no more than 2 cups a day, spaced out, and never on a full stomach until your system can handle it. So, traditionally speaking, you hold the bowl, bow to accept, and drink. Oh, this is smooth. Now the taste of it takes some getting used to. I'm going to admit, it took me a while to get used to really good tea. It looks good, it tastes good. I mean, like, there's nothing like a good bowl of matcha when you know how to appreciate it. But it could be a bit of a process to get to that point. It's very vegetal. And because it comes from Japan, it's going to be more on the, usually, because this one is from India, but usually because it absorbs a lot of the sea air, you'll have a more sea salty flavor to it. This one is vegetal. This one, you'll taste it. It'll taste more like traditional green teas from China. So you'll get a kind of grassiness to it. Although grassy is the incorrect term to use. You're supposed to say vegetal because it's plant life. However, it is more on the grassy, earthy side to it rather than the seaweed, vegetable flavor to it. So this one, because of where it's grown, you'll get a different effect. But it's still delicious nonetheless. Now there's going to be, depending on the grade, the temperature of the water. Like I said before, this is a very delicate tea, and because you're drinking the actual leaf, you have to be very, very careful with the way that you steep it, because it can be overpoweringly bitter if you use too hot water, and because there's no way to separate the powdered leaf from the water, as in you take out the tea bag and you toss it, you have that separation. You don't get that with matcha. So you'll always want to be careful more about the temperature than the time. You'll want to understeep it so that no matter how long the powder is in there, it's not going to burn the leaf and give you a very soapy, very bitter astringency that you can get from a normal green tea. So that's why it was kind of a mixed blessing when I started the water too early. Right now, the water has cooled down to a nice warm temperature. It's not quite room temperature, but it's not scalding either. And I have made that mistake before, and let me tell you, it is not pleasant to drink. Now, normally, matcha is also very expensive, so every cup that you mess up, that's money out the window. Oh, I love this taste. I did this perfectly. Like, I think I'll whisk it a little bit more because it's powder. It also has a tendency to fall to the bottom of the bowl and become sediment, and you don't want that, because then you'll have a bunch of green tasting water, and then at the end you'll get all of the matcha flavor in one chunk, and that's not good. Like for people who have had that happen to them, I don't recommend it. And they know what I'm talking about. Like, it's just one bitter swallow of gack. And, I've done that before, and it actually, I was able to show off a little bit, I think it was 2 years ago, 3, where they were having a contest at Adagio to see who could stomach a matcha shot. Now, a matcha shot is double the matcha with only a little bit of water. They make it into an actual paste and drink it down like that. And I took that challenge, and I took it like a man. It was just like, ooh, God. It was an incredible moment for me, but at that time it was just not so pleasant. But it's one of those, like, I did it kind of things. And let me tell you, like, once you really get the appreciation for matcha, taking that kind of a challenge is actually pretty easy. That was a few years ago, and I've still continued to drink matcha. I think I can handle it even better now. Doing the Thomas taste on matcha is a very interesting experience. Now, because it's a powder, there's a very physical, filmy kind of sensation that you get over your tongue. And then taking that moment to let the powder settle onto your tongue is going to give you a longer lasting taste. And matcha on its own already has a bit of a slow burn, but because you drink it, it passes over. It leaves like a sediment behind. But the actual texture is a very soft film over the tongue, and that's going to taste all over. Not so much the roof of your mouth. There are some teas that when you drink and you breathe, it stays in there. This one, because it's powdered and it's physical and it sits on your tongue, it's very much gonna stay there until it all dissolves. Oh, excuse me. And that all happens over time. You know, it's gonna stick there a while. So I highly recommend you don't try the Thomas taste until you appreciate and you actually like what it tastes like. And also, if you don't burn the powder, because then you have that astringency just sitting there on your tongue, and the next thing you're gonna do is look for soda or something sweet to drink it down. So I don't recommend that unless it's a really good blend, which this is. And now it's starting to cool down quite a bit for a few reasons. I'm gonna have the vent blowing cold air, and it was never steeped very hot to begin with, so it's going to cool down a little bit faster. Now, one of my pet peeves is drinking iced matcha. Some people love it, some people don't. It's just something about cold matcha that just doesn't sit well with me. And I'm talking about like iced in the fridge kind of cold. This is fine because it's cool, and the astringency is very low on this one. So, you know, this one's fine. But some people actually really love iced matcha. All right? To each their own. Oof, okay. Cold matcha is ew. Yes, I agreed, gamer. This is like, cold matcha is not my thing. People actually, you know what? Iced matcha lattes are very popular. That's when they make the matcha and then they add ice, they add milk, cream, sugar. I mean, at some point, it's no longer a matcha; it's just powdered. It's just powdered sweetness, and that's the good thing about matcha. Actually, is that it blends very, very well. But that's why you get culinary grade matcha, because the taste is hard to find. Was it matcha? Fun fact is 137 times more powerful than regular brewed tea. Yeah, exactly, because you're not just drinking what comes off the tea, you're drinking the actual leaf. And so, like, what I recommend that you only drink 2 a day, that's a very, very serious recommendation. Otherwise, you'll be running to the bathroom like for basically a week. And I speak from experience. I have done that, and it is not fun. Matcha has more caffeine in it than coffee does. That is relative, actually. And I'll tell you why. The only reason why tea has caffeine to begin with is because it is a defense mechanism. And what happens is when the leaf is attacked, broken, or something like that, the chemicals break down and make caffeine. Matcha only has as much caffeine as it's been traumatized. And because it's powdered, yeah, it gets traumatized a lot. However, you also have to take into consideration the amount of actual physical leaf that you're putting in. Now, if you per capita, this is not going to have more it's not going to have more than a cup of coffee. Normally, that one little bit, it's going to be up there. It's going to be up there. So, like, let's say if coffee has like this much, a bowl of matcha is going to be right about here. But then that intensifies with the second scoop. As well, there's the water that you put into it. There's a lot of factors that determine how much caffeine is in tea. So there's not going to be, like when you buy a tea, there's not going to say this has 75 milligrams of caffeine. This has 128 milligrams of caffeine. There's no real way to measure it until you like take apart the individual leaf. So it's really, I mean, like you can say that it's just about the same in general, but they're probably, I mean, it's going to be very difficult to prove that scientifically. You know, it's a case-by-case basis. But I'm glad you brought that up because matcha is very high in caffeine in general. Especially for a green tea. Now here's the way it works. So you have caffeine levels for a white tea, like very, very low, if any. Like normally you'll never get it because there's no, like they don't go through any trauma until after the packing phase. So the way white tea works is it's plucked, it's laid out, and then it's packaged. There's no oxidation whatsoever. Green tea is going to have a little bit of oxidation, where they pull it out, they dry it, depending on what tea they're using, because some of them get twisted, some of them just are left out, and they're like, sometimes they're just busted a little bit, but then they're fired really quickly and then packaged. Now the firing is actually the step of the process that stops oxidation. So when it's fired right away, it stops at whatever point the oxidation began. Now you have oolongs and black teas and dark teas, which are oxidized quite a bit more. Depending on which one you're looking at, you have oolongs that are, especially the Taiwanese oolongs, which are bald and broken and then bald and broken, and each time it's broken, it oxidizes because that's an additional trauma. What they do in some cases is they'll ball it, break it, ball it, and then fire it for a little bit. Then that seals one layer of the oxidation. Then they'll pull it back out, let it cool, ball it some more, break it, ball it some more, break it, toss it in the fire, and you know they'll do that process about 3 or 4, 5 times, and that locks in certain flavors that will only be unlocked once it's steeped and the water opens up the leaf again. Same thing with black teas. Black teas are oxidized the most, so they're going to be fired. They're going to be it's going to take the longest period of time between the oxidation and the firing process, because once you fire it, it's going to stop the oxidation altogether. Then they'll take that tea, package it, and send it out. Now, take into consideration matcha. Matcha is completely powdered, but because it's still green, you can see it's not going to be super duper oxidized. Oh, sorry. Because it maintains that color, you'll see that it's not really super duper oxidized, but the caffeine content is still there because the leaf is still there. You're not drinking what washes off. You're drinking the actual leaf that produced that caffeine at the time of its trauma. There's very, very little matcha left, so I'm going to finish this off real quick. Oh, it's so good. Although now it's super duper cold. It tastes like it came out of the fridge. But it maintains its smoothness, and that's what I love about this blend. It's still not astringent at all, and maybe this is why I don't like the iced matchas usually, because they tend to get more stringent. Maybe I've just been drinking the wrong quality, because I mean, like, there have been times where people have tried to sell me bad matcha and just swear up and down that it's not culinary, where I can see the difference. Like, I am not just some guy off the street who doesn't know what he's looking for. I once had about a 15-minute conversation with somebody who was trying to sell me bad matcha, and I'm like, yeah, no, it's not going to happen. But yeah, questions, comments, anything you want to talk about? Now's the time. And I went off on that caffeine tangent a bit longer than I thought, but that's a good thing, because I just love talking about matcha. It's a very mysterious tea. I'm glad you're enjoying it. It's a very mysterious tea because, it's trending. When I say fire, do you mean almost like grilling or roasting? Absolutely. That is actually what they do. Sometimes they put it in an oven. Sometimes they put it in an actual dryer. Like, they'll have a huge... I'll have to stand back a little bit. They have a huge drying machine that actually spins around. They'll put the tea leaves in it and it goes around. Traditionally also, it's in China, they have a wok. And what they'll do is they'll mix it in the wok over an open flame, turn it around, break it against the wok itself, so that oxidation takes place and is sealed at the same time that it's being fired. So they have. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to roast it. To fire it. Other places, what they do is they have a smoker, so that it'll absorb all the smoke. That's how you make lapsang. It absorbs the smoke of the pine wood. Now, the most interesting one of firing is in Japan. They actually steam it for about 18 to 30 seconds. And that's also part of this process. They fire it, they steam it, and then once it's dry, they powder it. I should have mentioned that earlier, because this is generally a Japanese blend or a Japanese process. Oh, excuse me. Part of the firing process is steaming. ZC, hi, welcome. Glad you could make it. So they put it in steam chambers, let it run for about 18 to 30 seconds, depending on what kind of tea they're making. They pull it out, let it dry, which happens actually pretty quickly. Sometimes they do several steamings, depending on the blend. Like, there's 1,000 different blends out there, and each one has its own special type of processing, and or cultivar, and or region, and or 1,000 things can determine what kind of blend you get. But in this case, it's a very specific process, because it all ends in powdering, and that's something that is unique only to matcha. Now, there are other. I'm gonna go off on a little bit of a tangent here, because there is a new trend where any kind of powdered tea is a matcha. and I have had spirited discussions about this, all of which people tend to agree with me. These are people who know, but I saw like matcha oolong and matcha black teas and matcha like this, and then I'm like, look, if you're gonna call every powdered tea matcha, you might as well start using that for Lipton too. Because, like, where do you draw the line? Matcha is supposed to be traditionally Girokuro, and that's it. But because the definition is powder, that leaves a bit of a legal loophole. And that also, like, in my opinion anyway, that also opens up the door to basically sully the name. So, like, I'm not a fan of calling any powdered tea matcha. This will always be matcha to me. I'm never gonna call Lipton matcha. But yeah, like this is the kind of tea that has a very special place in my heart, and it's the kind of tea that's meant to share. So there is a whole ceremony that can take 4 to 6 hours to complete. And what I wanted to do when I originally planned to do the matcha stream is to do like a piece of it, but the thing is, like, there's just so much that goes into it, I wouldn't know where to start. So I decided to bite the bullet and do the matcha stream without too much of the ceremony. Ooh, excuse me. Just, like I talked a little bit about it, but if you want to see a good rendition of it, go check out Karate Kid Part 2. Even I'm hoping Cobra Kai does a nod to it. I haven't seen that show yet. I've seen like bits and pieces, but I'm hoping there's a nod to it somehow, some way. So, questions, comments, anything you want to talk about, now's the time. I'm going to answer Teresa's question that she always asks: what would I pair this with? And honestly, this is Mike speaking. I would not sully this tea with any other food. This tea, because of its potency, because of its flavor, because of its respectable. That's exactly, because of the respect that it embodies. I would just say drink it on its own. I don't know if it's traditionally served with anything. I don't believe so. I think that they have like everything that you would eat would be beforehand. And then once you're digested, then you drink the tea. This actually helps you digest, and it also, what is this? How do you feel about keto matcha? What is keto matcha? Like, I didn't even know that there was a keto matcha. Like, I don't see how. Yeah, because like, there's nothing. I don't think that there's anything in matcha that would go against keto anyway. I don't know. That's something that I'll have to look into, because I mean, like, matcha doesn't break any dietary restrictions to begin with, unless it's like they make it from something else. You know what? Let's take a look real quick. Keto matcha. What is the difference? I think that they're just using it as a buzzword. You may get green tea. Yeah, keto matcha is just matcha. It is. It's such a marketing tactic. So I mean, they're marketing it towards people who are already looking for something along the lines of being like a healthier thing. But I mean, like keto, like you slap the name keto on it, it'll get people's attention. But it's just matcha, at least from the description that I'm reading now. Yeah, it says it'll give you the antioxidants and the nutrients that you need while still adhering to the keto diet. So, yeah, if that's the case, I love keto matcha, as long as it's a high grade. And you see, it's all gone. I love this stuff. I'm kind of considering doing a quick matcha shot, just so you guys can see it. You know what? I think I'll do it just for you guys. We're gonna do this, and it's been quite a while. So the way that it works, normally you would do 1 or 2 scoops. I'm gonna do 3, and I'm probably gonna pay for this later, because this stuff is really no joke. So I'm gonna let the water go. I hope there's enough room as well. Yeah, it should just be another couple of minutes, but yeah, I mean a couple of seconds. Use just a little bit of water. There we go. Oh yeah, this is lovely. Most of it actually sticks to the yeah, this is not turning out. Maybe I'll add just a little tiny bit more water. Mostly because also this is a smaller bowl. So there we go. Yeah, now it's starting to wash off a little bit better. It's still like stuck in there, you'll see, just not as bad. But you'll see at the bottom of this, you know what? This isn't gonna work. Let me move this down a bit. You'll see. Look at how deep green that is. There is very little water in it. But yep, I'm gonna close off this this stream with a matcha shot down the hatch. Woo! Hacha! That is strong. But look at how thick that is. It just sticks to the... Cheers! Woo. That is strong. I do not recommend this to anybody who has not. Look at you, all you guys. I love your reactions. Woo. Right now, there is a bitter paste stuck to my tongue. And it's all back here. And let me tell you, it's not pleasant. Like generally, like a nice bowl of matcha will be pleasant. It'll be soft, but it has a lot of water in it to dilute the strength. Let me tell you now, this is not very fun, even for me. I'm going to be tasting this for about 2 or 3 hours. But it's worth it because, I love you guys. And I think that sharing this kind of experience just enriches. And it's fun. Like a taste from the swamp? No, not exactly. It tastes more like drinking, not even drinking, like having like flour, white flour, just over your mouth, over your palate, and it's just that bitterness that comes back here, and that just goes to show even the most bitter, even the most high quality matcha can still be bitter. It all depends on how it's made. Alligator pea, I would not know how that tastes, and I am not looking for it. It tastes okay. Perfect example. Ground up aspirin. Ground up aspirin that has that white bitterness that's like, yeah. I can do it. I can handle it. But I wouldn't recommend trying this at home. I even made a little bit of a mess on my tray, but hey, that's what it's there for, right? But oof. I mean, look at that. It's slowly like ketchup. Here, I'm gonna see if I could get it to come down. But this is like the pastiness that I just swallowed. Look at it. Not even a drop has fallen yet. There we go. First drop. So this is what I'm talking about for the strength. All of that, 3 scoops concentrated into that little bit of water. And I even had to put a little bit more water because it was sticking to this, which I'm going to have to wash off later on. But yeah, it's still fulfilling that I can do it. And for those of you who have drank matcha before, whether you have the taste or not, you can appreciate the kind of intestinal fortitude it takes to take a matcha shot. But yeah, I love you guys for hanging out and watching and taking part in this really messed up stunt. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out. Thank you all so much for joining me. This has been an incredible experience. You guys don't know how long I've been wanting to do matcha. I've been talking about it for years, and this is a very exciting time for me today. So thank you guys for joining me. I don't have any announcements off the top of my head. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and close it out. Thanks so much once again for joining me. This has been an incredible experience. I will be putting this, have a good night, Teresa. I will be putting this on Facebook shortly, and see you guys next time. Bye.